The Cuyahoga County Department of Children and Family Services here in the state of Ohio still will not allow me to have visitation with my daughter, Cherish Ross, who is an 18-year-old young adult. And I don't know if y'all recall, but back in August of 2022, there was an altercation that transpired between my daughter and her foster mother, Teresa Williams. And I posted it on my channel. I posted a series of shorts. And I'm going to let you take a look at these videos here.
What happened, though? How did this happen?
I didn't want to be here. I know you want to go home. I keep telling you, you can go home. You just want to come home. Didn't I tell you that the other day?
Saying that she was hit and it looks like she's upset, and I don't know. I want to make sure she's safe.
Her head hurts since she got home. You screaming at me on your bed. I'm tired.
Well, can you?
All over my house. Shit, literally shit on my floors.
Who? She did that on your floor? What she?
Oh, absolutely. I'm taking pictures. She has shitting all over my floors.
Okay.
Pissing in the bed. She is shitting and pissing on my floors.
Because Becky and everybody in court said that they told the judge that she did not want to go home, and that's how all this started. Remember the interview? I was saying all along that she wanted to go home, and they kept saying that she did not want to go home.
No, she said she wanted to go home. I told them she wanted to go home. She wants to be home with you.
So as you can see in those videos I posted, the foster mother was saying my daughter was acting out. She was defecating all over the floors and urinating over the mattresses and all this stuff. And she felt that it stemmed from because my daughter wanted to go home. She stated herself in the video that my daughter wanted to go home. She knows she wants to go home. And that my daughter was acting out as a result of it. And my daughter had stated to me herself that, you know, when she sees us, it makes her miss her family even more. She wants to come home. And so as a result of that video and the altercation that happened, there was a staffing meeting that was posted. There was a staffing meeting that took place because immediately after all of that happened, they had completely ceased all of my visits. I didn't know what was going on. My caseworker would not contact me. I had texted her and everything because my daughter was scheduled to have a visit with me 2 days after that, and she did not come. And so at that time, my caseworker was Becky Sawyers and the supervisor was Jason Facins, and none of them would, contact me about the visits. So I had reached out to the manager over them, the chief, Latoya Howard, and she could see in this email, she emailed me and responded about, the visitations and the fact that, the visits were ceased, and she knew about the altercation that happened between my daughter and the foster mother. And so Latoya Howard stated in there that there was going to be a staffing meeting that would take place to talk about the visits and the situation with my daughter. So we had a staffing meeting, and during that time I was working, so I was only allowed to stay through maybe 20 minutes. I couldn't stay for the duration of the staffing meeting, but everyone at this was present at the staffing meeting. There was my daughter's caseworker, Becky Sawyers, along with the foster mother, Teresa Williams, my daughter's case manager from Ohio, Mentor Amanda Clark, along with the facilitator, Tanya Cross, the guardian ad litem, Elba Hedensheimer. And at that time, my daughter has had a new supervisor, Tiffany Mahoney. And so they were all stating that they felt because it was told to them, the foster mother said after my daughter had these visits, she would always act out, her behavior would change. And they felt that the negative behavior was stemming from the visits that she had with me and her family. And so they felt that at that time that they were going to cut the visits, and this was all approved by the guardian ad litem. So even though I had a detailed case plan, said I was supposed to have visits with my daughter, they were allowed to just stop those visits abruptly based off of something that they suspected, not something that I had done, but based off of my daughter's behavior. And so I felt that this was wrong. And so, I had been questioning them because it's been months, and I hadn't been able to have these visits with my daughter. I hadn't even been able to talk to her. And, she didn't have her phone. We couldn't give her a phone because we couldn't see her. We couldn't give her a new phone. Her phone was broken and messed up. And so my daughter, they finally allowed me to have these FaceTime visits with her, which started back last month in December. So I had we only had like 3 FaceTime visits because my daughter doesn't have her own phone. She's making calls from her foster mother's phone. So we really don't get to talk as much as we want to. So I had questioned them about, when are the visits going to be reinstated? And so the supervisor, Tiffany Mahoney, began to speak. So I'm going to let you listen to this conversation here because this conversation was recorded. So here it is.
And also, when will the visits be reinstated? Because I'm not sure why they were ever taken away. I know there was an incident where she had gotten into, altercation at that time, but there was nothing done on my part. Our visits were actually going well, and for some reason, the visits had been stopped completely. So I've been asking Mrs. Sawyers when the visit will be reinstated with my daughter, but we I guess we haven't talked about that yet. So, I mean, a FaceTime here and there is just not enough. Like, I get to see my son. I would like to see my daughter as well.
Ms. Ross's question about visitation. I think, Ms. Tiffany, looked like you were about to address that question.
Yeah, so, I know when we last met, I'm glad to hear that, we've been able to have a couple of FaceTime visits, between Mother and Cherish, and it sounds as though Cherish's behavior following those FaceTime visits has not been disruptive or negative, but please, if I'm incorrect, correct me and shed some light and insight to that. I know when we last met, our goal, Ms. Ross, is to make sure, that we get back to that point where we're having visits, but we needed to do so slowly, and I want to make sure that Ms. Ross, or Ms. Cherish and Ms. Williams have the correct supports in place in which, we are easing back into those so that, if anything is going on, Cherish can process that, and if we're seeing any disruptive or negative behaviors, from visits, then Ms. Clark is on board, Cherish's therapist is, present and able to kind of intervene, because that was part of what led to the disruption in Ms. Williams' home initially, was that following visits, Cherish was coming back and acting out. It kind of regressed a little bit, from her visit, from having the visits with you. And then, Cherish has kind of gone back and forth with us, about the desire to have visits, but it sounds like she's back on that. When we last met, she, was back on board with wanting to speak and engage in visits with you. We just want to make sure that we have a support team in place to manage the behavior, if there is behavior, from those visits. So, I'd kind of like to hear from Cherish where she's at and her thoughts of, if she feels, as though she's ready and at a point to start having visits with Mom.
Cherish, are you ready to speak on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have the floor.
And certainly, Ms. Cherish, if you're not ready to speak on that, we want to be understanding of that as well, but that's also where the therapist and Ms. Clark can kind of step in and see where the missing pieces are so that we can get you to a point where you're ready to have visits if and when, you do get to that point. But if she's not ready, Ms. Ross, we want to baby steps, okay, so that these FaceTime...
Can I cut you off for a second? I know you...
Right direction.
Okay, Tiffany Mahoney, might I just speak in and interject for a moment? Because I know you've been speaking a while, and I wanted to say something. How are you certain that my daughter's behavior has something to do with her visits? I know when she visited us, she did state that, it caused her to miss her family. She wanted to go home. She's an 18-year-old child. She's an 18-year-old young woman, actually, and that's her right if she wants to come home. But how are you certain that our visits were a result, her behavior, her negative behavior was a result of our visits, because every time we visit, there's no problem. She's okay. All I know, there was an altercation between her and Miss Williams, and Miss Williams said she was, I guess, defecating on her floor, and somehow it became a problem where this stemmed as a result of her coming home to visit with me. And how are you not certain that it's not a result of the medication, all the different medications that she's been on, such as the generic for Abilify, the aripiprazole that she's on, which is actually for schizophrenia. A lot of this stuff can cause, side effects and different aggressive behaviors and acting out. And I don't feel that the visits between us should have been taken away if you're not certain that, the negative behavior resulted as something, from her visits with me, because there was nothing with us. She behaved well when she was with her family, and she just stated she wanted to come home. So I just want to clarify how you all reached that conclusion that the negative behavior stemmed from seeing me.
Well, so Ms. Ross, we did, I don't want to backtracking because we've been making, quite a lot of progress, from previous, matters, but we did have a staffing to discuss the behaviors and, those taking place, but at that point, you had jumped off the call.
Yeah, I was working. I couldn't stay through the entire meeting. I told you all that, but the thing is, we never actually stepped forth from anything. It's like this was never resolved. You all just stated that you're going to take the visits away, and that's something that happened. you took visits away based off of something that happened between her and her foster mother, and somehow we were penalized, me and her, the rest of her family, and my daughter were penalized for not seeing each other based off of something that happened, because you said that, obviously my daughter, you said that she was acting out, or that's what you all came to the conclusion, that it has something to do with her visiting with me. Which basically all it was a young woman visiting, missing her family,
Right.
and she wanted to come home, which is that's her right.
Miss Ross, with all due respect, and this is why we're not going to try to put Cherish on the spot in this moment, that may need to have some further conversation with you and her therapist and Amanda, her case manager, because when you say how do we come to that conclusion,
right?
You know, sometimes we're getting mixed messages. Sometimes, you know, so maybe Cherish will tell you one thing, and maybe it looks like business are going well, and then this is why you don't understand how do we come to this conclusion. But then we might be getting a different message.
Okay, but we had a clear message for everyone to see on the video. I recorded everything when Miss Williams herself was stating that my daughter wants to go home, and that's why she's acting out. All of that is on a YouTube video that shows that she said herself, my daughter wants to go home.
Listen, all I'm saying is I don't think that we're going to reach agreement about that right now today. I think that
we're not going to reach agreement because you're not being honest. That's okay.
Hold on. I think that visitation is important. I think that we are not trying to minimize your concern about that, and we want to know how we're going to get to the next step in terms of trying to transition back to some of those visitations. But what I am saying is that when we're getting mixed messages, I'm not saying that the behaviors were a result of her, you know, having visits. We don't know exactly.
Well, that's what they said in the meeting. That's why you said yes.
Miss Ross, we can't talk at the same time. Now, I am trying to let you, you know, say your piece, but I'm just saying I don't want it to be a thing about us being combative. I want us to reach a resolution about what your question is. So all I'm saying is that we're getting mixed messages. I mean, at some point it has to be about, you know, even Cherish being, you know, able to articulate herself and her wants and her desires in a way where she's going to be honest with you and with us. That's all I'm saying. And I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen on this call, and I'm not trying to put her on the spot to, you know, to have us have to do that. She just had a crisis today and is coming back from the hospital. So I do want to make sure that we are definitely keeping you informed as it relates to any of her medical issues, the metformin, the diabetes. I want to make sure we are very clear about keeping you up to date on those things. I'm sure Ms. Mahoney and Becky will be on top of that and having some conversations with her therapist, her case manager, about what would that look like, and helping Cherish make sure she has a voice about really what it is she wants to see that visitation look like. Because I heard somebody at the top of the call say when they asked if she's going to FaceTime you, she said no, she didn't want to. So I'm not going to go back and forth with her about why she doesn't or why she does want to. I think that's uncomfortable for both of you. So I just feel like that's a conversation that probably needs to be had, you know, after this meeting, but not too far after the meeting. I don't want it to be something that gets away from us. I think it does need immediate attention, but it's going to take more than what we're going to be able to resolve right now today in this meeting.
So as you can see from listening to that recorded conversation, that Tiffany Mahoney is still stating that they do not feel they want to, you know, they basically want to ease into letting me see my daughter and resuming the visits, even though the visits had stopped back in August of 2022 and it's now January of 2023. And she already stated in the video, if you heard her say that she knows my daughter wants to have the visits reinstated, she wants to start the visits again and have them resume, but they're making that decision that they don't feel, they want to make sure that my daughter's behavior, and again, they're saying my daughter's behavior has to, you know, basically she's going to be able to behave herself after these visits before they're comfortable to allow her to start these visits. So they're now using the visits with the parents as a reward basically for my daughter's behavior. Since when is a visit a reward? You know, under the rights of the children in foster care, it states that they're allowed to have visits with their family, that they're allowed to see their family and have visits, and this is something that they're deciding on their own, and we don't pose any type of danger or risk to her, but you're stopping her visits based off of something you feel that she is misbehaving because she's having after these visits with us. See, the thing is, my daughter was acting out because she wants to go home. And every time she has the visits, my daughter even confided that when she has these visits, it makes her misses her family more, and they know this. They don't want my daughter to come home. They want to lie and keep saying that my daughter doesn't want to come home and want to hold her. And whenever you speak out, as you can hear in them, they backtrack everything they say. You just heard them use the visits as a reason, but then you hear the other woman, Tanya Cross, say that no one's using the visits as a reason or saying that this behavior stemmed from seeing me. You just said that it was a result of the visits. Who is she visiting? She's visiting me. And you cut the visits based off of how her behavior is after the visits. But the thing is, they're making it seem as if, you know, this is a reward. And the rights of a child is to be able to see her family and visit with her family. And they have been covering it up. They've been holding my daughter, even though she's now 18 years old, have not allowed her to come home. I even posted an entire pre-trial on this channel under the playlist. If you want to look at my playlist, I have a whole playlist outlining everything where I'm exposing the Cuyahoga County Department of Children and Family Services and the Cuyahoga Juvenile Court. I posted a pre-trial, a video of a pre-trial, and I put it in that playlist where my daughter's attorney at that time had even stated that my daughter wanted to go home, but they still continue to keep her. They refuse to let her go. They're the ones who hold on to her because they don't want her to go home. And so they're keeping me from visiting with her. They're cutting it short because they want to, basically, they don't want her to miss her family. They want to condition to keep her. This is what they're doing to foster kids. They're not letting them have their rights. This is an 18-year-old disabled girl, and I'm advocating for her the best I can, and that she should be able to see her family if she wants to, and they're still keeping it from her. And then they're saying that her behavior is a result of seeing me. How do you know that? How are you for certain? As I spoke, if you heard me question that in the video, the reason why I question that is because they say that they're supposed to tell me about all my daughter's health and medical and everything that's going on with her, but they have not been very transparent about everything. They have not been transparent about all of the medication that my daughter's taking.